Good evening and welcome to a regular meeting of the Ulysses Town Board. It is September 24th, 2024, and I will call this meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. May we please have a roll call?
You may. Ms. Weatherby.
Present.
Mr. Goldman.
Present.
Ms. Olson.
Present.
Mr. Boggs.
Present.
Ms. Bouchard is absent.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We have a meeting agenda that was posted on Friday and shared. Are there any needed alterations, changes, additions, or subtractions? Okay,
To approve as presented.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That moves to privilege of the floor. Let me get out my little clock. Typically I go back and forth in person and remote, but we do not have any member of the public in person. So I will open it up to those online. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Please indicate. Okay, I see one shaking head no. Okay, then we will move on to a presentation. We have our youth services. Fantastic. Rachel and Zach here. Please come on up and
Thanks.
tell us what you guys went up to. Thank you for being here tonight.
So presentation.
It's just listed as presentation. It's more
Yeah.
of just a.
Yeah.
what you got.
I don't have a
That's
visual
fine.
presentation. I just have some notes to share. So the things I've been working on since I met with y'all last June. Was a while ago. Youth employment program in 2024. We had 15 teens from age 14 to 17 placed at 9 locations, and they worked for just under 890 hours. That program received 29 applications, and a number of those, so we employed about half of those that applied. A number of those applicants did find jobs independently, and I did make 2 successful referrals to the Tompkins County Workforce Program. But of course, I was still a little disappointed that we couldn't hire everyone that wanted to. We had placements at the Ulysses Library, Teganic Park, T-Burke Summer Rec, Floating Classroom, Bet the Farm Winery, Jenny Creek Flowers, Main Street Market, and 2 new placements this year at Jojo Cook, which is a farmer's market business, and she was delighted to have some help for the first time in her business history, and at the Trumansburg Community Nursery School. And I think their growth into the new location, I think it'll be an excellent placement for folks that are interested in early childhood education in the future. My intent for 2025 is to organize a small job fair. This is something that's been come up at Youth Commission meetings and conversations. I think I'm ready now to try getting teens and local employers in the same room to sort of network and make matches themselves, in addition to doing our traditional youth employment program. Seems like a low input way for the town to support teens and potentially local businesses. So I look forward to trying to do something like that next spring. The civics program is beginning again in October. That program has had 2 iterations so far, fall of 2023 and spring of 2024. Both of those programs combined employment readiness training with a civic engagement project. And so it was the project that we landed on, or I guess I landed on with some help from the Youth Commission, was to develop a way to develop youth feedback and voice for the comprehensive plan steering committee. And you attended, I guess you did too, at a couple of those meetings. 26 youth participated, and I feel it was successful, especially the last meeting when the youth gave their presentations to the comp plan steering committee, and there was even a sort of roundtable discussion, which was much more informal among the adults and the teens in the room, which felt really it felt really good. It felt really authentic and good conversation. And I think some of the youth were inspired and excited or I don't know, excited, but like they were into that opportunity to have an authentic conversation with town leaders. A change I'm making this year is to separate the employment readiness work from the civic engagement work. It worked decently well, but I think we were trying to do too much in one program. So the new program is going to be the new program, I'm focusing first on the civics part of it, and the students that sign up for that program will be initiating their own community project. It could either be individual or group project or some combination of those two things, using the framework of Kingian nonviolence, which is something I'm training in and learning about, but I am working with a woman who has a lot of experience doing that work with teens. So it'll be community engagement, leadership development, and capacity building around how to envision and approach problem solving. And I think it'll be a really rich opportunity for up to 10 youth for the first round. My intent is to build more employment training into the YET program next year and create create a small employment readiness program working with Tompkins County Workforce Development, and the Learning Web helped me last year with the employment portion of the civics program. So I'm wanting to work with them again in some way to like bring some of those trainings to local youth, resume workshops, interview skills, things like that. The other part of the job, which I surprisingly have enjoyed, I didn't expect to, is the college tour portion. And I did 4 last year, doing up to 6, I think this year. We're doing 2-year schools, a mixture of 2 years and 4-year institutions in about a 90-minute radius. And one thing I was reluctant about last year was trying to do the work without large transportation options like a bus or a big van. But the minivan tours, I think, I'm renting, or not even renting, I'm borrowing a minivan from the school. So it's 6 students and me, and we're able to like have a lot of individualized attention from admissions officers or admissions personnel, and do kind of some of the more fun, not less academic, but kind of important also to give a sense of like what it feels like to be at an institution. Things like visiting the dorms. We hopped on a bus at a campus bus at Cortland State just to kind of like see what that felt like. So kind of just, I think a big part of this program is to check out what universities and colleges offer, but also just to envision what it feels like to be part of a campus community. So I feel like that small group and is an easier size to work with to do some of those smaller activities. Driving the van.
Yep, and these are primarily kids that would be first time in
Oh, right.
their families to go to college, or maybe not first time, but they might not otherwise have this opportunity.
That's right, that's important. And so, yeah, kids that for whatever reason might not have access to visits otherwise. And so I have support from the school counseling office to kind of identify who those kids. Maybe.
You know who's eligible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anyone is eligible, but especially Paul Pennick, who's the school psychologist, is kind of curating,
Right.
yeah, the group.
Okay.
And so we're going to Corning Community College next week. That's our start this year, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, any questions?
These are juniors.
Sophomores and juniors, yeah.
Mostly first generation.
Yeah, yeah. And so, yes, first generation and or parents are busy or otherwise just, they might not otherwise have an opportunity to. Some kids are certainly like going every weekend with their parents or with their families, but
Yeah.
maybe these kids aren't doing that. So, yeah.
Good. Thank you.
It's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
For the civic portion of the, that you're gonna look at for this year, you said you're looking at 10 students for a project. What age groups are you looking at?
Oh,
High school?
high school also. And I have, which is great to have the support of the social studies teachers, because it is really handy to have access to students in, like, I'm going to class Friday and Monday to pitch the program. So I'll have, I guess I may see all of the high school students this week.
You'll be busy.
Well, and this is also feeding in, correct, into the regions, the new regions diploma.
Oh, right. So the
Seal
social
thing.
studies department is initiating, it's been a couple of years in the making, and I think it's still, they're still figuring it out, but there's a seal of civics readiness, which is like a concentration that students can choose to have on their diploma. So the teachers are enthusiastic to work with me for that reason. And I'm wanting to reach students who are part of that program, but also anyone who sees a need for, has an interest in changing something or is interested in working on something, even if they're not part of that school civics program. Yeah.
And we fund that?
Yeah.
So the gas for the trip we pay
Nope. The
Okay,
school has,
sure.
the school
school.
providing the vehicle,
and the gas.
Thus far,
Thus
yeah, no one has.
billed us yet. The school district. I mean, we have a budget for transportation, but we haven't yet had to spend it. So,
Yeah, I get the sense that it works well for them, for me to be doing it, so they're chipping in.
Good.
the school's been great to work with.
Yes.
Yes.
One last question on the, you
Sure.
said that there were 15 teens that were posted at 9 different local businesses. You had 29 applications, so. Do we just not have enough local businesses
Oh,
to place them at?
we don't have enough budget.
Okay.
And next year, although, so minimum wage is going to go up again, and so the budget is not going as far, I think, as it used to, but I think, one thing I'd like to do next year is put a little more information out there about trying to steer to a certain extent this program towards kids that may need a little extra support rather than just kids that want to get a summer job. Some are perfectly capable of getting their own job, and maybe I want to try to see if I can figure out how to gently steer those kids to do that and to like be able to support kids that might need more support in the program.
Yeah.
That was an answer to your question, but also
No, I got it.
more than that, but yeah.
But that's the rationale behind the job fair idea is so that we can support, and like Rachel said, it's a low cost thing for us to host a job fair where employers can, there's essentially self matchmaking happening. And then you can find jobs that way, but then we can direct town resources to, like you said, someone who may need a little bit of support getting into the job pipeline, because that's the whole point of the program.
Right.
So historically, historically looking back, the program has typically supported 11 positions. Like, it's not full-time, but whatever it is. And so you're a little bit higher in that because you had some people working smaller jobs for smaller amounts of time, like it varied, right, in the number of hours by position. So it gives more people an opportunity.
Right, I think last year, because we had an inflated situation, I got kind of accustomed to just like handing out
Job fairing.
but indeed, when Ethan was running the program, it was like 11 or 12 or something like that, so maybe a more modest program is just fine, yeah.
So the year before, we had extra funding because we had cost savings in staffing, which is not a good thing to have, but we did have it. And the commission wanted to make sure that we caught up because we weren't able to do the program really for a couple of years because of COVID. So there was a whole generation of kids, there was a whole cohort of youth who didn't get to enter the workforce. So you had in your first year running it, right? You had somebody who was 19, right, with a first-time job. That you were able to place. So that was
Right,
They
that was
worked
last
for Wide
year,
Awake
yeah.
Bakery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think the job fair would be kind of fun
Yeah,
for people. I think the businesses would be supportive of that because sometimes it's hard for them if they don't have connections to the high school, they might not know how to outreach to folks or whatever. And there's a couple of new businesses coming into the town and the village. So
Yeah.
I think that would be a cool idea.
maybe
I haven't yet spoken to any businesses about.
talk to Tom. I didn't even think about this, but you're right. The chamber, we should talk to the Troop
Indeed,
Chamber.
yeah.
I'm sure that was already in your radar screen and I didn't know. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna invite
Exactly.
myself to a meeting, I think, yeah.
Perfect.
So I assume you have criterion for how you select the students.
So the county program has income eligibility guidelines, but we historically have not. So the criteria are based more on, not that that's the only measure of who needs support, but it's based on my judgment, you know, and Paul's judgment also. He's the one that knows the kids really well.
The
Yes.
interview also.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, there has to be a codification of the process, because then people could say, why didn't you pick my kid? Or-
They do already do that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So what's your answer to?
Oh, that I just have more kids apply than they have jobs available, and I'm just doing my best. It seemed to work for me this year to like just talk with families about, you know, what the goals of the program are, and
But I mean, I like the idea of having the jobs available for kids who couldn't get them on their own.
So one thing you do prioritize though is that they're first time job applicants. So you
First-time
definitely,
applicants, I think also I prioritized this year, I'm not sure if this is the right approach, but older kids who were also
Mhm.
full-time, first-time job applicants. So I had a ton of freshmen apply, even some eighth graders. The jobs primarily went to sophomores.
Yeah.
And some freshmen. So that was another
Yeah.
criteria.
I think that's good.
In talking with Rick Alvord, who's our county liaison, with their county youth services, his point of view was if you have a program which is only, even though their program is only for kids that meet a certain income threshold, if we had a program that was only for a certain income threshold, it might change the vibe of the program to that program is for a certain kind of child or certain kind of family. And I'm just thinking about that too. Like, I don't know how to think about our small program in that context, like.
so the whole philosophy behind youth development is that it is meant to help, it's meant to reach out and support youth who may slip through the cracks, who may need a little bit more support in their community. And we've talked about this at Youth Commission. And I think what Rick and I have talked about this directly is that income eligibility doesn't necessarily determine whether or not a child is slipping through the crack or needs a little bit of support. There are children who may on paper look more affluent, who are in need for whatever reason.
That's a good point.
And the idea that if you limit it only by income eligibility, that you create a program that potentially can develop a stigma as opposed to an access point for job readiness and opportunity. And so the prioritization has been first-time job seekers. So the county actually has criteria because they partially fund us. They put some money in towards the YEP program, and that we have to prioritize first-time job seekers. And then, you know, to Rachel's point, that she prioritizes older job seekers. And then from there, it's having meetings. And I know for Rachel talking to me, I don't think we went into this year, but we spoke last year. There's some youth who come through who might just, for whatever reason, are not quite ready to run and to do our program, which is how we encourage some of those people to actually participate in the civics the civics engagement program that had employment training in there to help get them ready for the workforce. So that's why we're looking at programs that can really meet youth where they are, because some youth, even if on paper they look like they might be the ideal candidate, you know, because they meet the income threshold and it's a first-time job seeker, it doesn't mean they're necessarily ready for a job, and they might need a little bit more support. So that's why those conversations with Paul Pettit have been so important, because he knows the youth that we're working with and is working with us to help place them successfully. So these are not abstract people, they're abstract names, they're humans that we know in our small community. So what that's worth. Did I mischaracterize any of that, Rachel?
No, but but I am thinking about that question of how, like, wanting it to be flexible enough, but also have some criteria that I can fall back on. And that is one of the reasons I want to, when I publish information about this program next year, I want to, first of all, be very clear about the fact that this is not a program for, you're not going to be able to work full, if you're interested primarily in earning as much money as you can this summer, this is probably not the program for you. Some students were very disappointed to learn they would only have 60 or 70 hours, or in some case fewer, but so be very clear about what, youth can expect out of this program.
I think that could be summarized and even just listing some of the criteria that Caitlin has, that the county has. First time job up
Yeah.
seekers,
Yeah.
the older students get some priority.
That's how they did it when Ethan ran the program.
And I
Yeah,
think just listing those out.
Yeah.
Then it's on paper.
Rachel,
Yeah.
does everyone who applies get interviewed?
Yep.
So they're still getting some job skills, even if they don't get a job.
What's the average work week of these journals? You're not full time,
Most, I think maybe 8 to 10 hours.
a week,
A week.
so it's really not a lot. So that would tend to skew it to kids who don't need the money.
Or that they don't know what they want to do or have sports and just haven't had the chance to find jobs, or are really first time employees that don't want to jump into a 40-hour week.
It's true, and the county program offers, I think, they have enough funding to offer something like at least 20 hours a week for 6 or 8 weeks, so. I feel like I'm trying to like balance a number of,
And we pay for those 8 hours.
Mhm.
The business doesn't pay.
No.
Are there any,
There are businesses who I know have kept on youth.
I was gonna say, is there
longer and rehired
opportunities
them
for
this
them?
year,
Yeah.
right?
Is what I heard, is that there were some rehires from last year to this year, so. Again, their money, not ours this time.
And one girl who went through the civics program did get a job this year, so that seemed like a success. too.
Right, independently, right? Or was she?
Through the county,
Through the
actually,
county.
yeah, she was the referral. one of the
Oh,
referrals,
nice.
Yeah.
There's also a student that worked, when I was doing that program, that worked at the library, that still works at the library.
Alright, yeah, yeah.
Our current summer, this past summer library worker was very enthusiastic about her job. I got to speak to her at the reception. That was great.
I think you're doing great work. Keep it up.
Yeah,
Just tossing it around. and
Yeah,
thinking of
yeah.
How this is perceived and who's the target audience for? Because if you're coming from a family that needs income and you need the kids to kind of work, this isn't gonna work for them.
But I wonder if it's also like. Kids that need support in general may tend to be,
So this is also so we often think about it that. It's easy from a financial standpoint to think about it, the business is getting this free labor, but it's not free labor for them. It's coming with training a young worker. And the education that they're providing also. And I think my guess would be in the county program, what I understand is the majority of the jobs are in the city. And we would have to find, I mean, we could always look at it, maybe there's a range of jobs, amount of time. But I think the focus is less on the youth making money and more getting them educated about how to have a job. Like, this isn't something you learn in school. And this is an educational opportunity, not just a paycheck. And the idea being that after you go through our program, you have some skills and some confidence to go and get your own job the next year. Or some youth I know did work second jobs or find other employment later. So I think it's less about the paycheck and more about what kind of experience they're getting. And I think it'd be a lot to ask an employer to have a youth for 30 hours a week.
So how do we measure the success? Do we interview the kids after and see what they got out of
Yeah.
it?
There's the get together at the end of August. That businesses and the students were invited to. Wasn't able to make it this year because I was out of town, but I went last year and I know everybody was. At least the folks that were there were happy with the program and the opportunities that the students had and I know there was the article about Jenny Creek. She was
Yeah.
raving about the help that she had. She didn't realize she needed help until she had 2 students last year, I believe.
It was the first
And
time
she
she'd
was
ever had
able to be-
employees.
Be able to
Yeah.
do more than she ever thought, so she was gonna expand. So I
Yeah, and I did do, I think next year, if I can. I think I'd like to do some in-person exit interviews. I did do a survey and I'm not an expert in survey design, but I did try to ask some questions that got at, you know. Got at what you learned. On a skill level, but also gave you some examples of like. What other kinds of things you can learn on a job, like, things like time management. So I tried to do it so that I wasn't feeding
Right, but,
Then-
yeah.
answers, but also, and I did, I think, I think there was, I think having an exit interview, I'll be able to do a little more of that active reflection with students about the experience. But yeah, I'm always kind of thinking about how to like measure the success of this and how to make it better, and I thought coming into this year that I had it down. I was like, second year, I got it. And I think, but now I know some things I want to change for the third year, and I'd be glad to talk more about it or hear your feedback.
I'm just asking some questions.
Yes, I mean. If you think of something, I'd be glad to hear about it. For sure.
Well, that was the first half-hour presentation. Now.
Go.
Zach, welcome.
Okay.
Welcome to your, this is your first one,
Hot
right?
seat.
Or
Yeah.
second?
First time in the hot seat.
First time in the hot seat?
And any seat here. No. Yeah, first time in a board meeting. So good to be here. Okay, so I'll just kind of like take a snapshot of like this week and kind of work back from there. So this week, we're in the middle of, not in the middle, we're still in the beginning of third week of a program called Youth Cross Country that I have taken under my wing, and it's a really awesome program. I'll talk about it a little bit. It's the second week of a program called Outdoors Club. It's brand new, but it's very similar to a program that used to be offered years ago. I know that from direct experience because I used to actually do it with Ethan. I feel like I actually taught him how to do that program. So it's actually back in a way that it's probably back this week, starting last week. Things are kind of have some similarity to things, maybe programs the way they were a while ago through rural youth services, and that like we're meeting in the same room that they used to meet in. We have 10 kids signed up, and there's a wait list for the Outdoors Club, which is really awesome. And that was really possible, I think, because I went to the school and presented in classrooms. So I had a lot of teachers on board who I reached out to, who I thought might be. And so I think I went to every 5th and 6th grade class and talked to them in front of them. A lot of them already know me a little bit, so that helps. But yeah, I had a poster up in the school. I told them they could steal the poster and take it home and sign up, and a lot of them did. And yeah, so that's something that actually like worked. And it's something that works good this seasonally, like outdoor. Like I framed it as like, we're gonna play epic games in the woods out there. We're going to play competitive lawn games. We're gonna learn some wild foods. We're gonna set up tarps and learn ropes. That's pretty much all I said. And I said, also, we might think of more things. And that was enough for people to sign up and give me more ideas. And when they met me last week, they were really fun. And like, when you do programs like this, you have to do a lot of planning and prep for a lot of things and bring a lot, and then half of it gets thrown out because of what kids are actually like and what. So you have to be very, very, very adaptable and knowing like kids you get are like the kids you get, and what they want to do is like what they want to do. So and you need that. So that was really cool. I'm excited. My week has also looked like, to go back to a little bit more of the other program, but my week looks a lot like talking to parents, both on hours on the phone has happened this week. In the last 7 days, talking to parents about what this program is, so they can actually, because there's a side that I tell the kids and there's a side that I have to tell the parents, and like, yeah, they have to have a lot of similarities. There's sort of a different style of telling. So a lot of parents were curious about it. They had maybe never done like after school type things. Like there's not like a lot of kids maybe don't even know like what an after school program kind of is. I mean, the school has like after school help for for more academics and sports, which starts a little bit later. But and there's drama club or musical, so those are things that have like a culture. But maybe not so much like, hey, I'm starting a new outdoors club that's like a couple hours long. I'm this person, I do a couple of different things at the school. So that's like really cool that that's actually like got good support now, and like it just was gonna take time to get that support. You know, people at the school and staff don't know a lot about my position until I have shown up consistently and responded to them and told them what I'm offering to do. And that takes time because it's like not really their responsibility per se, but it's like my responsibility to kind of show up and be consistent and try my best. So it's been really great, definitely, by meeting people at school, talking to parents on the phone, through email. Some of the kids are in both programs, which is a really good sign because it means that like they see me in one program, they want to do another. So that's really, really cool. I feel like it's probably best to meet kids in 5th and 6th grade for this kind of thing and then get to know them, like, because, or start like that culture of like what could happen after school, because they're much more approachable and they're easier. They can approach me easier too. So there's definitely, that's probably like that was a good realization. And this, not that there are a 7th and 8th grade actually signed up for the club, but just generally speaking. And yeah, so the cross country program is really neat because it's not I don't know, I haven't done a lot of coaching, but I bring a very different like feel to it, where it's 3rd through 6th graders. It's really neat, the kind of family feel of it, because there's like siblings and there's just kids who probably don't want a lot of structure to their exercise, to their sports, and this like offers that. There's kids there. There's some kids there, and each year that I've done this, I did it in a different kind of, not as an employee, but I did this program previously. So I know that like there's kids who you know, they come because like this is really good for them, and like they want to goof around a little bit, and it's okay to do that here. They want to get exercise, but they might just want to walk. And some other runners are able to like push each other and really run. And it's allowed to have like all that can be there at the same time. And we're all a team. So it's really, really cool that they want to do this kind of like exercise and fitness. And we play a lot of games, and we're very kind of, it's just like, there's a lot of laughs and it's fun. And it's like, there's a lot of other practices going around us, but we're like, kind of like, we have our own like character, definitely, for sure. I feel like we feel a little bit different. It's not so organized and structured, but it's also like really high quality. So I think it's really cool. I would like to get some testimonials from parents of both of these programs as I get to know them. Maybe, I don't really think there needs to be names, but I would definitely ask them for like some, what do you call that, when anonymous like testimonials about like what age their kid is, if they're like a 8-year-old male or 11-year-old female, and just like, hey, this was great for them in this way. We saw this in them after we saw this, they came home like this. Some of those things I've already got through emails. Like I've already done that. And it takes a lot of me like telling the parents, like, hey, this is my philosophy for this program. And they really like that. They like to be like told like what the philosophy is behind like the program, like rather than just kind of, it just brings more person, because it's very personal. Like for me, like I have to be very like myself, and very like a role model, and show a lot of sides of myself in a very like appropriate way, but also like in a way that, in that a way that's like, yeah, I'm also just a human being. And that's like something that I'm able to, an adult is able to do in this role. That's part of like a youth development role, is that you're adding like a layer of an adult who's provides something that's like not a teacher, not a coach maybe, but it's just like another adult in their life that cares about them, and they know that. And it takes some time, but yeah, that's just what we're going for. And that's like why I'm doing it, is just because that's kind of what I was like kind of meant to do, and like this is a way to try to do that with limited resources, and it's like been yeah, very challenging to, very, very challenging to start something new like this. And all the logistical things that are in my head a lot of the time, and what I think there should be like is terms of just like making sure I have everything, like the paperwork I need with me all the time. Like it's just a lot of running back to the office. I'm always working, you know, later these things are happening like till 5:30, 6:30, then I come back here. So, you know, my hours push pretty late right now, and that's just the way that it has to be to do this. So yeah, that's, you know, that's like really where it's at like right now. Yeah.
What are the name of the two programs again?
Outdoors Club and Youth Cross Country. They're both on the rec desk, so you can still read. I don't know if they're still able to be seen on there, but the descriptions are, yeah, are on the rec desk that we're using that the town pays for. So me asking Will Glennon if we could use that and getting a yes was like really awesome, because I wasn't sure if he was gonna say yes or no, but I was like, sure. So it's just a system, and
And
it
how
makes.
many kids doing it now?
In cross country, there's a wait list as well, and there's 17 signed up, and there's a wait list. I believe every one of those kids goes to school here at the public school, I think. And at the other one, they do too. But of course, the rec desk one, like the cross country could have anyone sign up actually for that. There's no town line set in there or school. So, but I do believe they all go to school here. Yeah.
I know a couple of the kids that are in cross country, and they've been enjoying it.
Any questions? We have a lot of budget to get to, so I don't wanna rush anybody, but thank you so much for all your time tonight. Zach brings to us an amazing background doing youth engagement, and so we are deeply fortunate to have him. And Rachel, you have built a program from scratch. We gave you like 2 twigs and a roll of duct tape, and you built a plane, which we're flying. And so I'm grateful to both of you for being here, because we, like you said, you're building this all and you're figuring it out, and you're building that plane midair also, right? Like you were not handed a prepackaged program to take. They had to do everything from forms to recruitment to building all the relationships with all of the people in the school. Then you get to the children, and then you get to their parents, and then you actually have a program, and it takes months, if not years. So thank you for doing the groundwork on this. Because you didn't have like a.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but it's gonna be a lot of SPCA contracts and then budget.
One thing I just wanted to add, if there's like another minute, is there another minute? Is
Sure.
I've been learning about the fact that like Trumansburg After School Program has a long wait list, and that's like, you know, that's anecdotal. I don't know how many families are facing those sorts of issues, but I am. If there was one way that our program could grow, the youth development program could grow, I would love to see more after school opportunities for like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th graders. Just because, and so normally this department is meant to serve middle schoolers, but I think that the 3rd and 4th graders are finding, even if it's not for childcare, but I think like things to do for kids that aren't interested in sports.
Yeah.
Or maybe the musical, I think like that age group could use more activities. If there's ever like an opportunity to grow the program. Is that what you would?
Yeah, and learning, yeah, I just think it's interesting to just, when you realize how much you get to realize in these roles, I think about like what there is to do after school, even for 3rd and 4th graders too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the things are echoed from parents. Just the same thing they're saying about middle school for some of the older, early later childhood years too. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's just
We should
interesting.
bring that to youth commission.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
his whole point, is to recognize need and figure out a way to
Yeah.
Help it
meet
out.
that.
So what days are your program, Nick?
Right now, Mondays and Thursdays for running, and Fridays for the other one, and then
The outdoor club?
and we have some races on Saturdays, so it's pretty spread out.
They were out in the rain last night.
And how late was that? The season?
This is all stuff for September and October, everything I mentioned.
Mhm.
So that's just gonna be for those 2 months.
Mhm.
And I don't know what else. Yeah.
We're not putting on the spot.
I think the outdoor program has a potential to like keep going all year, like,
Yeah,
you're willing to
Sure.
be
Outdoor,
outside any
indoor.
kind of weather, like, it's like, I don't know.
yeah, so yeah, really not trying to, yeah, really just happy to be kind of right here right now,
Sorry.
but yeah.
Don't panic.
I can see that.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did Carl's on? I don't know if you got on the agenda or not. He had sent letter from the planning board.
Is this the one from, we talked about last meeting?
I don't think so, because he sent it to me in the meantime.
Okay, I haven't received it.
Okay, if we could ask him, because I didn't want to hang him all night.
Okay,
If we, or if we bump him to the next meeting, I didn't want to have him wait 2 hours.
well, I haven't even read the letter, so
Okay.
could I see a copy of it?
Absolutely.
While we're doing that, we could look at the SPCA.
I wasn't sure.
Oh, this is for the next meeting. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
We can talk about it, because this is
Sure.
regarding the zoning change. And
Yeah,
we'll
I
do a
wasn't sure
public
he
hearing
was
for
just
that.
waiting
Oh,
for
thank
that,
you.
that's why.
Okay.
I asked.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm sure that's probably waiting. It'll be in the packet that we
Okay.
have for the next town board meeting. Thank you. That brings us to, I did ask in public comment if he had it. He did
Okay.
shake his head no, so. Picking that one. Just wanted to give a quick update on the town court consolidation. We did pass the resolution to consolidate the town court. There was a permissive referendum window. That window closed with nobody filing a petition to take it to a vote, so the consolidation happens. However, the wheels of democracy sometimes work in interesting ways, because we followed a legal process. Because we're consolidating the court, so a position, Judge Lee's position, and Judge Lee was not running for a new position. His position will end, his term will end on December 31st, and then officially on January 1st, the court will go down to only having a single justice. However, in the Board of Elections process, the local political parties have the opportunity to put forward candidates. And they did, or one did, and they filed all the paperwork to have a candidate on the ballot. So even though we don't have a position effective January 1st, there will be a candidate on the ballot in the election in November. Everybody is aware of what everybody else has done, but I just wanted to come and tell the board that because the window to remove oneself from that ballot happened a little bit before the permissive referendum expired on the position. So the court consolidation will happen. There will not be a new justice taking seat, but it will be slightly confusing to everybody in the public. It is not confusing to anybody who is officially connected to the process. So the local political party knows, the Board of Elections knows, we know, but yet. It's because it's two parallel tracks and you have to follow the process. So I talked to the Board of Elections and they said, this is just how it works. You do your thing and we did our thing and this is where we are.
So it'll be on the ballot and people can vote him in, but he's not
Correct.
going
So
to be
the
voted in.
person on the ballot, I would assume, I don't think anybody would challenge. So, if people vote or they don't vote, that's beyond our purview, right? But the fact remains that no one on the ballot would actually take office because an office doesn't exist as of January 1st. So I know.
Why would it be assumed that the person who's in office is the one that's gonna be the one justice and not the one that wins the election?
Because they're a seated justice and they get to fulfill their term.
A little odd.
So you cannot by law terminate a term midterm. You can only eliminate a position at the end of a term. So one position has been eliminated at the end of a term.
So at the end of
And-
Dresser's term, he would run.
Yeah,
You would have to run again and somebody else.
exactly, which is not our purview, but
Right.
yeah, no, that'll, once you get elected, you have your term. So
Right,
That's
we go.
confusing and yet not that
There's
confusing.
gonna be a
and
lot of
yet.
questions about that.
So, okay, that brings us to Blixie. And tentative 2025.
I'm already shaking in my boots.
Stop. Did you give me sharing privileges or co-host privileges? Awesome.
We still have my little name tag, or does it not matter?
You can have mine.
Okay. Right here, Blixie. Thanks. Just in case someone wants to know how to spell my last name.
Yeah,
I tried to minimize the paper, but you're gonna need your reading glasses.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you like a paper copy for this? I have one for you.
Thank you. Chris, and you have to officially present it to us, correct? For the sake of the minute.
Town board, I hereby present you with the tentative budget 2025. Thank you very much.
Yay.
And I have one from Michael. And I do have one from Mary. So should I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what I wanted to start with was just to tell you what you have in front of you.
Weird, because I can't get it to share.
Oh.
Okay, well, if anybody in the public wants to follow along online, it's actually posted on our town website, but it's not letting me share.
I think Krista has to make you a co-host.
She
Oh,
did.
you did, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the packet that you have has the summary of all the tax information and the tax rate schedule, a summary of the budget. It has a fund balance analysis, which I might spend a little more time on at the beginning of this discussion. And then the detailed pages for all of the funds with notes. So the document that was distributed that's available online is just the numbers. So. And I think that. I don't know if you wanted to say anything or you want me to just dive in.
Dive right in.
Okay.
Blixie's doing a great job.
So we've already been through these line by line meetings. I know not everyone could attend all of them. Where we really dove into detail into the different funds and the different departments and areas of the town. But this first page is the tax summary, and if you want to get to the bottom line fast in terms of what's in this budget, and I apologize for the size, but I thought the 8.5 by 11 paper and reading glasses was preferable to lots of really big paper. So it is a little small, but the tax levy increase that's in this tentative budget right now is 5%. And you can see that on the right-hand side in the middle of the page. That is over the cap about 2%. Approximately. So that's what's in the tentative budget right now. Okay. What you do have here is a history of you have historical data on the various levies and how much they went up from year to year. I know that the town hasn't in the past exceeded the cap. Is that true? Never,
true.
right? And right now the cap would be at a 2.98% increase.
So each percentage is how many dollars?
Each percentage is about $16,500.
84, yeah.
So we'd have to find 34,000 in reductions to make it under the cap.
Or
48.
32,454. To be exact.
Fine.
Yeah, I mean, and, I hate to beat a dead horse, but fire and EMS combined is
Right.
40% of our budget.
No, I get it. And I applaud Caitlin for finding the $9,000.
It
counts.
Found $9,200 in the couch cushions, but.
So that's a summary of the tax information, and I'm doing an overview right now, and then we can go back to details more, if we want to do that. The next page, the budget summary. Shows you by fund, first. The appropriation budget, so it compares, the percentage and dollar comparison is the change between the modified budget and the tentative budget. So it's a budget to budget comparison, but there's prior year data is also there. Just for visually to compare. So you have appropriations, at the top portion. In the middle, you see revenues, and at the bottom, you see property taxes. Revenues in the middle being everything other than property taxes. So this gives you a sense of how much in each fund is either, how much is increasing or decreasing in terms of appropriations, revenues, and taxes. I think a couple of things, just again, big picture to point out, is that in the DA fund, which is where we purchase equipment, that's where you see a reduction because it had to do with how we use reserves to purchase equipment. And that's going to vary from year to year. So you see a change in appropriations under DA as a reduction. In Water District 3, you see a change because we don't have a debt service payment in this 2025 year that we did in the past. That's going away. So everything else you see increasing in terms of appropriations. So I just wanted to point that out. And the revenues, again, these are revenues not in everything but taxes essentially. And some of those things include if you're going to use reserves, but we're not, if I remember correctly, we're not planning to use reserves to fund things this year. No, I don't believe so. So what,
No, parking lot, so money.
that would be ARPA money, and we don't have, that's not in there at this point.
Right.
Because it would be an expense and a revenue that would directly offset one
Partial, it's gonna
another.
be partial ARPA. Hopefully it's mostly ARPA. We might
Right.
have to dip into.
You might have
those
to use some
reserves.
reserves, but that's not in this budget.
We don't have those.
Because
numbers
we don't
yet.
have the data, right? But what you'll see here is more of a shifting around of things in some ways, because property taxes, in terms of the total, that's not property taxes, excuse me, sales tax. It's after 7 o'clock, and there is some shifting of sales tax revenue, in particular between A and B, to move a little more into the B fund and a little less into the A fund, just because B fund has very limited revenue sources, and sales tax is one of them. So again, with highway, the reduction that you see has to do with the use of reserves, right? And we didn't appropriate it, we didn't use them. So otherwise, it's kind of staying flat in terms of these other revenues.
One number, Rich, to your point that I wanted to bring out about looking for, where can we find $32,000? If you look under the center
Yeah.
section, revenues excluding, and you look at emergency medical,
Yeah,
in previous years, we have budgeted for,
Well, part of it was appropriated fund balance and part of it was revenue from the EMS billing.
right, but a revenue billing is down significantly. And so in this current budget, we are modeling it a lot more on what our experience has been this year. And the reality is we don't know why it's down. In addition to having a bill for fire and EMS that we don't have control over, we also don't have control over who the billing agency is.
right.
And so it would be great if that number, for the tentative budget number, reflected more expected revenue, but we can't in good conscience. I mean, we could get to almost $32,000 right there. But we have to project that it's going to be more like it has been, which is down. And we don't know why, and the village is in the process of looking at a new.
Right.
A new agency to handle billing, and the hope is that our billing will be more accurately reflected. But we might need to have the very real conversation about at what point do we start being slightly more aggressive about capturing money that's not paid in bills. So at this point, we are not aggressive in the slightest. Do we need to be more, and when I say aggressive, maybe that's the wrong word, but be more assertive in attempting to capture more of the revenue that in theory we're entitled to.
So this is if somebody uses an EMS service, they get billed by the EMS company, we're supposed to get a portion of that, but we don't necessarily follow it if we're not getting it.
Right, I mean, and that was a philosophical decision that was made by the board effectively many years ago when we first started. And there were I wasn't around, but Rich, you were around for our conversations about, how should we be even billing people? And then it was like, well, we should definitely be billing people, because if you don't bill anybody, it's the insurance companies who are saving money, not anybody else really. But there are, the head of EMS for the village kind of very briefly talked about that there's a range of options we could take, which is, you send 3 letters instead of 1 letter. You send, there's gradations before you're going to like debt collection. Private ambulance companies will go to debt collection. That's the most aggressive track you can do. And it doesn't feel good.
No.
So, but there are steps in between sending 1 letter and debt collection. And we might want to look at where we're falling and what other options there might be available to us for this number in particular, because if the costs keep going up and the revenue continues to drop, it goes onto the tax base to pay for it. And we're looking at about,
I mean, it's consistently been over 100,000 for a few years, hasn't it? And now you're saying it's gonna drop to 70?
I mean, are we gonna make the 104 this year?
That includes appropriated fund balance.
Appropriate.
It does.
Yes.
So what's the actual revenue?
Well, if you want to look at the actual revenue, for the last year. I don't have these page numbers, I apologize for that, but we got to get to the
Fourth one back.
SM and SF page,
the very
in the back. And,
Yeah.
so. Last year in 2023, the actual billing. Was 104. The budget this year included 80,000 in billing and 24 in fund balance. And right now, we're projecting that we might get 75 in billing because we're running behind budget.
Hmm.
And so actually that $5,000 is essentially the that we're expecting to get less than the budget that we planned. And so for next year, we budgeted a little more conservatively, but we're also not using any fund balance because there's not enough there to use per our policy.
Right.
So, we wouldn't be sticking with our fund balance policy if we appropriated out of what's there now.
Right.
The other thing I understood from attending one meeting about the billing is that part of it is also the timing of billing for services so that the insurance will actually pay and not having delays in billing.
Yes.
And it's the service provider that the EMS services were using, that if they had a billing provider that could do more real-time billing and online services, that they could monitor that better and actually collect more insurance because there wouldn't be delays in
Yeah.
the bills going out. Because I think after so many days go by and you haven't properly billed the insurance
you
company,
lose the
you
money
can't.
completely. Yeah.
So, so I think some of it had to do with just the effectiveness of the procedures and methods that were being used for getting the bills out to the insurance companies for services that were provided and making sure they were accurate. And the EMS staff could help with that, but only if they can see the data real time, not if they get it a month later. So that was also part of the solution to try to help bring our revenue back up. I can't say I know where that's at right now, but that's what I heard when I was at a meeting on the RFPs they were doing.
Yeah, well, Rich and I heard that they're hoping to have a new vendor in place by the beginning of January.
But it sounded like a new vendor could help mitigate some
Yeah.
of what we're seeing here.
Fingers crossed.
That was the hope, you know.
But we
I
can't
don't, we
plan
don't
for
know
that,
that.
no.
We don't know that until it actually happens.
Well, and that's the whole value of, I think this has been a situation that we weren't as well aware of because I believe Joel started working for the village last year and he's been a huge asset to the village EMS in terms of monitoring the systems and how everything was running. And that was something that was something that wasn't necessarily as strong before he arrived. And so he's brought attention to a lot of deficiencies might be the wrong word, but that might not be the wrong word either, in the whole process. And so, he helped trigger this review. But we've been using, like you said, we've been using fund balance to kind of smooth the gap between revenue, what was expected, and what we were actually getting, and now we've just hit a wall. So,
Did
and
they say that how long it takes once they have a customer, how long it takes them to get the information to the billing company?
I think the service they were using was doing everything manually.
Gosh.
And part of
they
the,
send it electronically, yeah.
yeah, and so part of the challenge though, wasn't so much that the billing was going out, but that if they didn't have quite the correct information, right? Maybe there was some
The billing company
miscommunication
or
or
the-
whatever, the billing company, right? There was no way for the EMS staff to validate that or check it or follow up on it real time because of the antiquated systems they were using. So this way, Joel's example was, if I can see online, I know what services we've provided, I know what calls we've been on, and I can see if they've been billed properly. And if I can see that real time online, I can say, oh no, we've got to do this or that, or make a correction. And right now, he's not in a position to be able to do that. That was my understanding of the conversation. And so that by being able to do that real time, corrections or follow-up on billings can happen on a timely way and therefore increase our ability to get the revenue from the insurance companies for the services that were provided. That's what I took away from that discussion. I can't say it's 100%
Yeah.
perfect, but that's my understanding. So I saw a lot of potential there with the new more online real-time type system, if they can get one implemented that works well for them.
Yeah, but getting a report a month after the fact, or monthly reports, it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late to fix something that wasn't billed correctly a month later, so. Anyway, that was my understanding of that. And of course, it was impacting all of the municipalities served. So moving on, I'm gonna go back to where I was, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. We kind
Yeah.
of rabbit trail there a little bit. But if you look at this summary again, the property tax piece. Again, I just wanted to point out that there are, of course, there's several funds that don't receive property taxes that says always zero. I mean, I realize this is not new to you guys, but I'm just walking through it. The general fund is where you see a significant increase, and then of course the EMS and the fire. Where you see a significant decrease is in the water district again, because that debt is going away. It's lowering the property taxes. Now, we're also beginning to invest in some reserves.
Did
some
we make the
capital.
final payment in 24?
Yes. Yeah. So, so this savings is actually helping the rest of the budget. But we're also reinvesting into the district a little bit by adding to reserves. So, but so the net amount that is going back, as far as reducing taxes in that area is just a little under $100,000. So. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. So things are kind of moving around a little bit in terms of where it is, but the bottom line is still 5% right now. So I wanted to bring your attention next to this fund balance sheet, which looks like this.
Who paid this back?
Yeah. So the fund balance estimates, so what you see on this page is by fund, and it's not all of the smaller water district or the fire district, these are one areas where we would appropriate fund balance potentially to fund things. And so you see the beginning on the far left where we started 2024. What we're estimating revenue and expenses to be in 2024. So these are our projections. Okay, and then you're seeing how much of that fund balance is reserved. Like you can't use it for anything else. It's set up in reserves. And therefore getting to where do we think we're going to be at the end of the year with unreserved, unrestricted fund balance? So that is that sort of that middle column, middle-ish column. And then you implement the budget. So what's happening with what fund balance we have available, and then what are we appropriating? And after the appropriated fund balance that you'll see in these budget documents on the far right, you see kind of what's left. And then what is the percentage that's still available or unappropriated available fund balance as a percent of our total budget. And then the fund balance policy, which we adopted this year, to the far right. So you can compare our fund balance policy to what we think is going to be left after we're done appropriating in this budget. So the bottom two, the water and the emergent EMS, there is nothing available to appropriate there. You'll also notice that E fund is pretty much at its limit as well. With A and DA and DB, there is some additional fund balance there that could be appropriated, but basically we're spending this money down. And yes, we want to reach our fund balance policy, but at the same time, using it all at once to fund operations is a risky thing to do without having a longer term financial plan to factor it in over time. So that you don't have a year where suddenly you don't have any fund balance to appropriate per your policy. And the only alternative is to raise taxes. So that is something that as we look at each fund, I've called to the board's attention as far as what is our comfort with appropriating this level of fund balance this year. And with some funds, it's not as dramatic as others, but we do need, I just wanted to call your attention to this bigger picture and where we are. And the fact that we're approaching our fund balance policy, and in some cases have already met it. And we're appropriating a significant amount of fund balance this year, in some cases to fund operations or what we're proposing for 2025. So it's just a cautionary on my part to say we need to be thinking carefully about what we're doing, and maybe working in the next year on doing some more long-term financial planning about how we're managing our fund balance and what we're appropriating, and making sure that we're managing that more gradually over time so that we don't have big fluctuations in tax need. So.
And the fund balance policies, we set the minimum
So this
level of,
yeah, this is at the higher end. So it's a range.
right, but it
So-
says the minimum, so we can't go below these thresholds, that's what. this
No, I
is.
think this is the higher end
This
of
is
the
the higher
range.
end. Okay,
Actually, I have the policy right here. I brought it with me just in case I had to refer to it. It's just. Lots happened since this yesterday. Anyway, so in the A fund, it's 20 to 30%. In the B fund, it's 25 to 35. In SW, it's 25 to 35. So,
But if you,
and
want-
SM 15 to 25.
if you wanted to, you could
Go a little
make
bit.
the 2% come out of there. I mean, if you wanted to,
You could.
because we're at the high end of the fund balance. You could trade off some fund balance for less tax increase.
On the other hand, you're appropriating, if you look at the numbers that you're appropriating right now.
Yeah.
So in the general fund, there's almost $150,000 being appropriated right now. And most of that is not covering one-time expenses, it's covering operations.
Right. The fund balance should really be used as much as possible for it's one-time money for one-time purposes.
Or you implement the spending down of it more gradually over time. Right, so
Yeah, and the
that,
whole point of doing the exercise with the percentage of fund balance was so that we could have a target.
Right.
And not go over and not go under.
right. But the challenge is you don't necessarily want to reach that target in 1 year,
Yeah.
right? You want to do that
Yeah.
in a more planful way.
Well, and I know that's something that the finance committee started talking about, but just getting to a fund balance policy was a lot.
Yes, it took us
So-
quite a bit of time just to
Right,
get there.
right.
So
Yeah,
it seems like
yeah.
the next logical step is to come up with a target to use it. Because I'm perfectly fine moving in that direction. I think we should be moving in that direction. To reach our policy in some places we already are.
And I've also been in preparation for looking at that, I've done some analysis of. What is our history of, okay, so we're planning to appropriate, let's say, 150,000 of fund balance in the A fund for
Yeah.
2025. What are the chances that we're actually gonna use all of that appropriated fund balance? Or are we gonna have savings in this or less spending in that?
Right.
What is our history there? What do we tend to do? Because that's part of it too, like,
Yeah.
how good are we at estimating the revenues and expenditures? Are we being super conservative? Are we being a little more realistic? And,
Yeah.
and what does that look like? And so I've started to do some like 5-year looks at that too. Because that impacts, you can
Yeah.
appropriate this fund balance, but you may or may not use it all. Depending on how things play out through the
Right.
year.
Mm.
So, and I do think that the tendency historically here is that not totally consistently, but often, you don't end up using the amount that you've appropriated in full.
Right.
So that's another thing to look at too, is how good are we doing our projections and how conservative are we budgeting in general? So. Not that that's a bad thing, but when you're trying to get to a target, all those things need to be taken into consideration. So. But these are some hefty fund balance appropriations, and in particular, I'm very concerned about B. That's a large amount to appropriate in 1 year of a fund balance.
Yeah,
That isn't that. That's a big chunk of it. Let's just put it that way. So, and obviously we'll be talking more about the details of that as time goes on, but. So I don't know if anybody has questions about this, but this is sort of that, big picture look of where we are with taxes, with overall appropriations and revenues and fund balance and appropriated fund balance. As a whole,
yeah, that's good.
okay. So I don't know how much you want to walk through these. We did do line by line. Meetings, I know not everybody could attend all of the meetings, so I don't know how much detail you would like me to review with you. On these, there are, I don't know, would you like me to approach it?
Well, I think it really is the desire of the rest of the board. What would you like to do? A highbrow summary of each fund? Or are there specific? Like, it may be worth to knock off some of the smaller funds so that we can put those to bed tonight effectively,
Sure.
and not trying to kick the can, but so that we make sure that we cover those, that might be the way to start. Then A and B are the biggest.
Yeah, well, do you want to start with the highway funds then, the DA, or no? Is that all right?
Let's go.
I'd also like to understand the financial implications of the two groups we just had tonight also. In terms of what,
It's
what's
in the A, yeah.
That's in the A fund, yeah. So it doesn't have to be now.
Do you want me to start there or start with the DA or?
We did do the highway.
Okay. I mean, so go a few pages in. So this is in order of the fund in alphabetical order, so you gotta go past B. and get to DA. So in this fund is where you'll see machinery and the maintenance of, you know, the snow removal and bridge maintenance, although we don't really mostly own the bridges, but and so here there is some machinery purchases per the capital plan. There's the contracts that we have with the, you know, the commitment we have for snow removal for both the town and the county that we do. There's staff and employee benefits. There's a small addition to reserves, but there's not a dramatic change here from year to year or budget to budget. I think the biggest things that fluctuate in this fund are really equipment purchases.
Yeah.
One of the things I'll note is, what's I gonna say? Shoot. I had it in my head and it went away. So, the first page of DA is expenses, and then the second page is the revenues. Again, this is,
So on the health insurance line,
yes,
did they come up with a number?
The vote's on Thursday, but they're still at 14%.
I thought I saw something. They are at 14.
That's what they're recommending, but the vote's on Thursday.
so the 14, you know, across all the funds, the 14% is in here.
Right.
For insurance.
Right.
In the case of this fund, though, it's actually going down because we have a position that had been funded as if it were going to be a family plan, and it's someone who chose not to do that. So I mean, it can vary from fund to fund based on who takes insurance and who doesn't. So.
You're saying that the 38,500 is less than the 2024 end year projection was 37,000.
Right,
The modified budget was 52, so we're less than.
yeah, so the percentage changes from budget to budget.
So there's the decrease in coverage. But the increase of 14%.
I know what I was gonna say here. We want to start tracking overtime expenses, overtime
Yeah.
salaries, which we haven't been doing separately. So there's a line for that, but it's not, till we start tracking it. We won't, you know, we'll adjust the budget. So the overtime is included in the 0.1. But as we go through the year in 2025, we're gonna start recording it as a separate line. And then as we get experience, we'll move the money around and we'll have a better idea of how much of our time is overtime as far as regular time. I think that was a desire on the part of our superintendent to have that data. Yes,
On the revenue,
yes,
CA 2665,
yes.
what,
So.
did we not sell something or?
So I'll explain that. So if you look at the revenue for DA 2665 and the expense for machinery. What
Previous page.
on the previous page, right? When we budgeted for an item that we purchased this year, it's actually a trade-in. And so the way it was originally budgeted was the value of what we were trading in, and then the full expense of the new piece. But typically what happens, because you're not really just selling a piece and then buying something else, you're just swapping. That I recommended that we just put it all into one line as a net cost in the future. And so what you see in the actual expenditures is just the net cost of that piece of equipment of the trade-in,
So
and you
it's
don't see a revenue and
51,
expense.
30.2.
Yes.
So it's
Mhm.
reflected there.
So it's reflected there, yes.
Okay.
And then in the future, some of these items are in fact trade-ins, but they're going to be budgeted
Okay.
as a
So
net cost.
our trade-in wasn't the 118, it was something.
Yes,
less
it
than that.
was. I'm just saying that
Oh.
this is something we budgeted one way and then decided to account for it differently. And going forward, we're gonna consistently account for it that way. So you won't see an item in equipment sales like that 118 related to a trade-in.
Mhm.
You'll only see it if we're actually just disposing of a piece of equipment and selling it on Auctions International or something like that, which we don't have budgeted here right now. But you can see in 2023, we did. That was actually the sale of a piece of equipment, the 31,000,
It's like great all.
something.
Great all something.
Yeah, or a truck or a couple pieces of equipment. So the 118, you're not gonna see anywhere because it's included in that 59.
And the DA 9785. Is still in sale, principal and interest.
That's all done. That was when we purchased that truck that took forever to get here.
Right.
Yeah, so that's not happening, that's done, that's paid for. Is that still, I'm just looking to make sure that I answered your question. It
Yeah,
looks like maybe I didn't.
no, I
Okay.
get it, it didn't add up to 118, but that's a,
Yeah, well, there could be other
yeah,
things
that's
in there
right, that's
too.
why I didn't.
Yep.
It's good enough.
Yeah, but that's generally what's happening there. So, so as we purchase a new equipment, that's really just swapping out. You won't see that as a sale. You'll just see it up in the.
Because that came in on the invoice or something. Was that
Yeah,
a
I mean, it's all on one invoice.
Right.
It shows,
couple of months ago or?
yeah, exactly. Yep, through, I think it was Alta Equipment or something like that, yeah. So. But that's why that looks that way.
Yeah, so I was like, heck,
yeah, no.
it happened.
And then in this fund, you'll see on the bottom in yellow. So this, in the yellow is where I highlighted the fund balance kind of question to bring to your attention on each of these fund pages. I'm pointing out that, how did we do this year? How are we projecting? So we're actually projecting that we're gonna do well compared to the budget this year for 2024. And next year, we're going to appropriate, according to this plan, 82,000 of fund balance of the 143 that's going to be available. And it leaves 61,000 available to appropriate over and above what our policy
Right,
says,
right.
right?
Which should be useful in the future for a purchase, could help for a one-time purchase,
Right,
help smooth the cost on that. We don't have
So-
reserves.
yeah, so we're basically appropriating, a little over half of what's available to
Right.
appropriate. And that's just what I'm drawing to your
Right,
attention,
got it.
the things that are in yellow, okay?
Any questions on DA?
And DB, the revenues and expenses are all on one page. This is only the highway maintenance and capital improvements for the roads. That is in this fund. And one of the things I'll point out is that we typically budget for in this 5112.2, which is capital improvements to the road. That's always paid for by state aid. That's your CHIPS money and your Pave New York money and things like that. And so we always budget the same amount in expense as revenue. We don't necessarily always use it all, but whatever happens in expense, we're gonna have in revenue. And so the net effect is always zero on the bottom line. So in the current year, you'll see we haven't done a lot there yet, although more will hit here. We won't spend the whole 153. Next year, we may not spend the whole 150, but then we wouldn't have the whole 150 as revenue. So those two things directly offset one another. Just pointing that out. Otherwise, it's what we spend on the highway maintenance, both in personnel and contractuals. And this is essentially all funded through property taxes, or excuse me, non-property taxes, the state aid. Or the sales tax. I can't speak right, I'm sorry. So the fund balance we're appropriating here is a little under half of what's available. Per our fund balance policy, if you see in the yellow. We're also projecting that we're gonna do a little bit better than the budget plan by about 25,000. For the current year. That makes sense. So that's pretty straightforward. The next is the fire and EMS, which we've already talked about a bit.
Not a whole lot of options in this,
No.
so,
These numbers are given to us by the village.
Yeah.
yes.
Yep. The only thing you could do is be riskier in your budget estimates for revenue, but I wouldn't recommend that.
Well, I mean.
I don't think at this point it's smart to.
No, I think the hope is if they switch to a new billing company, then we watch and see what happens. Right.
Mhm.
And this time next year, we should have a much more consistent ability to budget
Yep.
and hope that there's more money coming through.
So that's it on the fire and EMS. The next page is your water districts 1, 2, and 4, which are essentially unchanged in terms of their activity from year to year, except for the calculation of administrative costs that are charged back to District 4, and just the cost of inflation there, the 3%, and that's about it. And then you have Water District 3. I'm sorry, I'm moving right ahead. Does anybody have any questions about 1, 2, and 4?
Are we gonna expect any increases in revenue when the renovations happen? At Cars?
I mean, Carissa, we really don't make money
No,
on the water.
it's,
So whatever they use, we're just gonna
Yeah.
go on and, so there's just, the numbers will change, but it's not in it. We're gonna make
it's a
money
net-
or
it's a
lose
net
money.
Zero,
Yeah,
the village bills us, we bill them,
okay.
And we
and they
pull,
pay us back, we pay the village and they pay us.
right, and you charge,
so
what is
efficient.
it, $10, it's something, there's a $10 a bill
Yeah.
for administrative
which
costs.
We can change at the organizational meetings, we decide that. You know,
But
10
it,
years is long enough for that.
yes, yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely worth looking at, but it will have a net zero impact
Okay.
on the budget overall, because whether or not somebody uses 1 gallon or 1,000,000 gallons, it's still that flat.
Yeah.
Bill fee.
Okay.
So it doesn't take Carissa any more time to pass those bills through.
Okay.
So $10 is probably too little though, realistically.
So 7 hours worth of work.
So with Water District 3. One of the things we discussed was looking at, now that the debt service is paid off. Making sure that we're adequately funding capital reserves for future infrastructure needs. And also looking at how we're billing for the water to make sure that the operational costs of getting water to users is being paid by users. And that the capital infrastructure of the system is being paid by the property owners. So just continuing to look at that. And in my analysis, I'm seeing that we're gonna need to gradually start increasing our water rates over time in order to get it to cover the amount that it needs to cover the operational costs of the district. And we did go into some detail on that during our line by line. But the key things here I would point out is that there is a 6.5% increase in the rate from the town of Ithaca for the water purchase. So that's going up significantly, and so the rate that we're turning around and charging is actually going up 10%, a little over 10%, and that's to cover the cost of the water, the cost of water loss that we
Did they
have.
Find out anything about the water loss?
We're still looking at
No.
that, right? I'm looking at Chris there, because we don't have any additional information, but we're looking at that closely. And then just the cost of operating the district, I mean, getting the water to the users. So that is what's being proposed in this budget. Again, the actual tax levy is going down close to $100,000 because of the debt going away, but we are adding $60,000 to reserves. So it's kind of keeping that more level funded in a way.
Any questions or comments, concerns?
So there's gonna be some savings to the users.
There'll be savings to the property owners.
Right.
Yes, in the district,
I
yes,
think it's going down 49%.
right,
Say, yeah.
right.
But the users,
The
their bills
users,
will go up.
but the
Yeah.
actual water usage cost per gallon, the rate is going up 10%.
But if you're an owner and a user, you should have a net decrease.
You should, because your taxes are gonna be lower.
Right.
But I can't say I know
Right.
what
Depends on how
the
much
net
water
is,
they
because it
use.
depends on how
Yeah.
much water they use, right?
Right.
So if you fill your swimming pool every month over the summer, that might not be true. I
Right.
don't know.
Unless it's just a little back.
I don't know. But yes, that would vary from
Yeah.
user to user, but there will be a lowering of the taxes associated with
Right.
that district, yes.
So on for 24, the revenues are 42 and the expenses are projected to be 370.
For the projections,
Yeah, which we
so the total appropriations, I'm trying to look at the number where you're looking. 370, is that the
370.
number for total appropriations?
yeah, and then the revenue is 342.
That's correct.
So would we just reduce the repair equipment capital reserve to balance that?
Well, actually, what we had planned to do was appropriate fund balance. That's what's in the budget, the 45,000. So in fact, the projected results are actually about $16,000 better than budget. Because we had planned to use 45,000 of fund balance and we're only using 28.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's where it will come from. It will come from fund balance. But that was the budget plan.
So where's the 20? I see the 45 for the revenue.
Right, under the appropriated fund balance, right? If you look at the bottom of the projection and you see the yellow.
Mhm.
So the revenues are under expenses by 28,179.
Mhm.
But because we had appropriated 45, we're actually not using it all.
Okay,
And that's where the 16,821 comes from. So yes, there's a loss for the year, but it was sort of a planned loss. That's all I can say. And again, that includes
Debt
funding, it includes the debt service and it also includes funding some reserves too,
Mhm.
so. Anything else like this? So that's, other than A and B, that's where we are.
Back to A, then, Rich had a question there, so I might as well work through A.
Sure.
I do want to leave, because it's. Under keep in mind for the time, we do have a couple items of business that we do need to take care of tonight, with the SPCA contract for the comprehensive plan committee stuff.
Maybe you wanna do that first.
You wanna do, are you mind if we do those quickly?
No, go right ahead.
We will come back to. Yep, see ya.
Coffee. Time of night.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see.
So, we do have a, 2-year contract with SBCA. We got, there was a minor typo, in one of the terms that our attorney caught in the first draft, that was posted on Friday. The new contract became available, yesterday, and I circulated to the board, and it was, there was one place where it referenced, a new 3-year agreement as opposed to the 2-year. Or it said the agreement had a term of 3 years, beginning on January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2026, which is in fact only 2 years, so we had that corrected. Nate, town attorney, has reviewed and approved this. So I would make a motion, and the cost has not gone up for several years now. It's been the
That's
same.
amazing.
I know, so that's why let's vote on it quickly.
Yeah.
So I'd make a motion, to, approve the contract. So this would be slightly different from the resolution in the packet, because when I wrote the resolution in the packet, I didn't have this final draft back from SBCA. So I will use that as the template, and I will say, resolve that the Ulysses Town Board authorized the town supervisor to sign the animal control services agreement. And be it further resolved, Ulysses Town Board directs the town clerk to submit the signed contract to the SBCA.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Question on the census.
Sure.
It says, that's on page 4. Says they may complete a census, may complete a census. Jeez.
Is it-
Census, I want to say sentence. And then, Carissa, you hired somebody, I thought, to do a census.
No, we did that kind
Last
of
year.
last year.
How often do you do that?
And I think it's every 3 or 5 years.
Yeah. And that satisfies theirs. Yeah. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that?
No, thank you.
Caitlin, I just wanna confirm, so it's now therefore be resolved that the Ulysses Town Board authorizes the town supervisor to sign the agreement,
Mhm.
getting rid of the.
Yes, getting rid of pending, yep. And then that's it, and so you can. In the draft resolution, you get rid of all the other stuff before it.
Yep.
And then also the further resolve that. You'll submit the signed contract with SBCA, so.
All right.
We have a motion and a second, any further discussion? And all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. And then, I did not print out copies of it, but, they were posted, there was a public information plan, and, that was posted on the website, as well as, memos, from, the town planner, relaying the information from the comp plan steering committee. And I put together a draft, website resolution. Chris and I got on a phone call last week, with the town attorney to kind of walk through, this, resolution, for an independent website. Do you want to kind of could you mind briefly explaining what the comp plan steering committee is hoping to do?
Yeah, so for the website, we had been presented a couple examples of that MRB had prepared for other comp plans, other planning opportunities with counties, and they can be more interactive than I believe our current website will allow. Interactive meaning they can pop out like information faster. It's not going to be a back and forth where people can post and MRB's responding. It's all going to be just pushing information out. So we can post meeting timeframes, we can post upcoming meetings, we can post drafts when we're there, we can talk about various activities or opportunities there are for public feedback. There will be a way for the public to provide feedback through the website, but it's not going to be like a Facebook where there's going to be back and forth. That's not what we want at all. We want people to come to our meetings if they want to do that. So right now, the policy that we have the communication and social media policy doesn't quite allow somebody else to host a website for us. And the whole intent is really just to push information very specific to the comp plan out. It would be maintained by MRB. I wouldn't have any issue with Carissa overseeing things. But I don't want you being the one with the day-to-day materials being pushed out.
Yeah, so what this resolution allows, so when Nate and when Chris and I spoke to Nate, what he recommended is that we acknowledge that this is a slight deviation from the social media policy, but that the fact remains is that the whole point, he said, of a comp plan process is to get public feedback and also to push out information. And that should not really stand in our way, because and he gave me a lot of the narrative I used here in terms of, he didn't write it out by hand, but this is the philosophical, he was actually like speaking aloud in possible ways to handle it. And so that's what I reflected in here, that we're acknowledging that we have that. There are some stipulations that the communications manager, which is Carissa right now, shall either review or designate someone to review material posted to the MRB website. And so if there's anything in violation or there are concerns, that they get addressed. There's a process for getting anything addressed. The independent, per our website, per our social media policy, the independent website shall identify that's approved by the town of Ulysses and clearly identify as part of the comprehensive plan process. And that language specifically will be approved by the communication manager or designee. And then the website is subject to records retention requirements by New York State and the town of Ulysses. And again, Chris is the records manager. She's got all the best titles. She's direct to ensure the process where the information is collected and saved appropriately. And that all information will be posted, that is posted on the website shall be public information, and it's not going to be editorializing. That was the big philosophical idea behind the social media policy, is that we don't want people pontificating on things that might be their own personal opinion and it appeared to be that it's on behalf of the town. Certainly not on social media platforms, and that any web applications, like Liz mentioned, things like survey tools, they'll be used in a way that does not create a back and forth dialogue, but is more of a way for us, the comp plan, to push out questions and gather public feedback. So
The one other item that they talked about was something called instant input, I think is what it's called. And it's either an app or on your phone that you could do, and where we can push out just a question here and there. Like, what's your favorite thing about the town of Ulysses? And they respond and submit it, and that's it. But it's trying to encourage some participation from folks that may not want to come to meetings, but are on their phone, because we all live on our phones, or a lot of us do. But again, it's not going to be a back and forth. It would be just a question, and you'd have to sign up for this. But it still is just a quick question, a survey question, and a input back to MRB. They'll collect the information.
You're a moderator knows that if it's something inappropriate is posted, that it's.
Oh, that's the whole purpose. We'll have the communication manager. Oh, you mean, no, but nobody else will be able to see the results. So if I ask you a question, like, what's your favorite thing about the town of
Yeah, not
Ulysses?
just that, but if somebody says, oh, I don't like this. town," or something.
Yeah, it won't go, nobody from the public would be able to see the responses. The responses automatically go to MRBs, who's maintaining the
Okay,
website.
so it's.
And
not
then
a
they can
list of,
screen out.
I like the.
No.
No,
I like
nobody,
the streams, I like the waterfall.
yeah,
No.
no, we're not gonna be able to see anybody else's
That-
responses.
no, the only things posted on the website will be
It's the
public
question.
documents, things that we could post on our website, but the idea is that it's something that we're already effectively have paid for in the contract. So it doesn't incur additional time here, and the alternative is having Carissa or someone else on townhouse staff have to be having to do those updates, and they do want it to be a timely website. It's not just, we typically use our website, it's a lot more static for information, and the goal for the comp plan is to be more interactive, more updated more frequently, and also be able to use these apps. But if you know, if they send me thing and like I said on it, no, I hate the town of Ulysses. MRB collects that information, the comp plan steering committee can see that information, but
Nobody,
it's not gonna be posted on the website
course, somebody. to feed
No,
off
no,
of
no,
it.
no.
Right, no, we don't want any of that.
Right, right, okay.
No, so there's zero desire for that kind of.
We
public
want
spectrum.
people's feedback.
Right,
but-
but we don't want the
Right.
back. and
We're
forth
not
dialogue.
doing any back and forth,
Some
nothing.
rogue member of the.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Of the committee could release it.
no.
Well, I
I
mean,
don't think,
well, I,
Yeah,
You have no rogues, is that
we
what you're
don't,
saying?
that's what I say, I think we have a pretty good.
well, and I mean, it's also, a lot of these, and that's, and I mean, we could dig into that further, but a lot of these ads can be effectively anonymized when someone may submit.
Yeah, we won't know
That.
who it is.
We
I
may
don't
not
think.
necessarily even know who it is. And to be fair, if someone says they hate the town of Ulysses, that's a completely fair opinion to have. It
Right.
doesn't
Sure.
necessarily mean that their opinion doesn't matter. Hopefully they explain why they hate it.
Right.
Because that would be useful. Yeah, that's, again, not to your point, no, that's not what we're attempting to do, so.
But the comp plan steering committee saw some benefits with this
Right.
independent website, so. We did vote unanimously for it, but obviously we aren't gonna do anything without the town board's.
that's
approval.
hosted
MRB
by
will
one of
host it.
MRB's
Yeah.
vendors or something.
MRB would run it.
Well, I'm sure they would get somebody, but no cybersecurity issues with it. or-
No.
No,
No.
it'll be separate, and it'll all be, if someone hacked it, they're gonna get things that they be publicly.
Somebody inserts some sort of a worm in their comment or something.
It can't, it won't come back to us, it'll be
Right.
separate, I mean, I'm sure it'll be in MRB's
Servers.
server concern,
Website
it
stuff.
won't be impact to us, so.
And we're just have gotta find if we decide to do this, we just gotta find a catchy phrase for the website.
Exactly. Well, I will move this, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, any further discussion, comment?
Which one are you moving?
I'm moving this, so the authorization to establish independent website, the second one. I'll come back to the PIP. Okay, the motion is second, all those in favor? Aye. And before we move on to the PIP, because it is actually kind of connected to the PIP, although it's not embedded in the PIP. The other update that, Rich and I spoke to Nate. Regarding, after the last town board meeting, there was a desire, for me to explore, or the town board to consider, the best way to use the enthusiasm of the wonderful members of the planning board to, help identify issues in the current zoning, that are posing an issue, and so, Rich and I had a meeting with Nate and is one of the things that we discussed about what a good approach might be to help coordinate it in an effective manner that's a good use of volunteer time and where it should fit in the comp plan update process. And what his recommendation was, that seemed reasonable to me, and Rich, I won't speak for you, but you indicated at least that you thought it was reasonable then, so correct me if I don't say anything correctly. That the planning board could be really helpful in identifying places in the code where there are some technical errors or things that are in conflict with existing law. In terms of particularly state and federal law, but I know that the water, not stormwater plans, the streams, yes,
Stream and wetlands.
stream and wetlands maps. There's been recognized problems with that. That's something that actually, if the planning board can identify the appropriate ones to be used, it could be incredibly useful to the comp plan steering committee. And so what the recommendation from Nate is that we want to be, and I think this is philosophically where I am, is that we want to be respectful for the comp plan steering process to help determine the vision and future of the town, which would then result in a zoning update of, a comprehensive review of our zoning and an update from there. But that there is definitely work that could be done in the meantime that really gets to more technical instead of philosophical ideas of what improvements could be made or changes that could be made that could be very timely with the comp plan. And so what Rich and I discussed was in some way trying to coordinate with the Liz, with the comp plan steering committee and the planning board to help find some of those areas. And you have a number of members
I was
on
gonna
the,
say, lucky
on the
us.
planning board who are on the comp plan steering committee, so there
Yep.
seems to be a natural place to find synergy between the work both groups are doing so that they effectively can, not necessarily work in tandem, but can work in ways that move this overall comp plan process forward and improve our zoning code simultaneously.
Okay.
So I wanted to bring that back to the group. I think we have another comp plan steering committee plan meeting next week,
Next Wednesday.
next Wednesday. Planning board, I believe, has one next Tuesday. Is that correct? Or wait, no, it'll be after. No, that is.
No, I
next-
think it is.
Is next Tuesday,
Yeah.
but with so many planning board members there, I thought it seemed prudent that maybe that could get added to the agenda. I know
Okay.
there is an agenda in place, but. I didn't know if you were
Talk to
chairing
me.
the next meeting,
I
but
am not.
you're not chairing the next meeting. Anyway, that was the recommendation, and it seemed a way for issues to be addressed. In a
Okay.
coordinated fashion.
I will talk to Niels to get something on the agenda for the comp plan meeting next week.
Well, it's sound.
I know we already extended it to an hour and a half, so.
Okay. Well, I don't think you have to solve all of everything.
No,
but that's a
no,
great place
it's just
to-
discussion, bring it
yeah.
up. As people start reviewing and digging into documents.
So, but, I have to be mindful of the time, I'm sorry, but I know that was a time sensitivity, and then the other is the PIP, which is the Public Information Plan, I just enjoy saying PIP. It was developed, and reviewed by the town, comp plan steering committee, Liz, could you give us just a brief,
Yeah,
quick summary?
so the public information plan, public involvement plan, could go either way. Summarizes the activities that the comp plan steering committee and MRB propose to do over the next year to engage and include the public. Includes newspapers that will reach out to, a list of entities that we're gonna be reaching out to from state, local government authorities, local businesses, local environmental groups to get some input and feedback, make sure they're all aware of meetings when we have focus group meetings, and make sure that they're aware of the draft documents as we get to that point. The whole point is to engage the public as much as we can, because that's what this document is about. It's how the community sees the vision of the town for the next 25 years. So we can't do that without the community. So there's a lot of steps and discussion of how that's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen in the PIP. So I don't know if people had a chance to look at it. The PIP has been reviewed by the steering committee. I'm 99% sure it's been reviewed and approved by Nate, and it's been reviewed by DEC. So the comprehensive steering committee can go ahead and implement this plan. But we would like, because it is an official document for the town where we're gonna be reaching out to the public and interacting with the public, that we wanted to ensure the town board had an opportunity to review. And we would like your approval of the document as well. So that's what's on the slate for that.
So I have 2 questions. So what is Map app?
Map app.
And pick.
Oh, it's just some different some access to different maps that we'll be utilizing.
Because it sounded like it was possibly part of what the public could look at or something.
Yeah, it's part of the stuff that can go on the website, which is one of the keys for that website, where they can look and see where they are compared to historic resources, or compared to parks, or prime ag soils or something. So it's just a more of an information pushing out tool that we could use if we want to.
And then can you touch on what a metropolitan center plan is? Because we don't really have a metro.
No. Is that what we said we were gonna do?
Yeah, that was in the. That,
I mean, I think
and if you don't know, that's.
City of Ithaca has one. I don't think the village of Trumansburg would qualify for that. But it's just more looking and reviewing at other plans to make sure we're consistent, because we can't have, I mean, we're just a town, but we need to make sure we're consistent with other municipalities too, as we can. Because we can't say one thing and be completely contradictory to the village or the town of Ithaca, because we're so close in borders. But I don't think we're proposing to actually do a
Yeah,
metropolitan,
that's what I wasn't sure.
yeah, because we don't really have, I mean, we have hamlets, but I wouldn't call them metropolitan hamlets.
Waterbury's definitely not a metropolitan.
The Waterburg isn't.
Well, and maybe it's
Waterburg Heights.
Right.
So,
Okay,
I noticed there's a typo on, page 5.
okay,
The heading for section 3 says the members.
members. Okay. I can get that fixed.
No, come on.
Okay, well, then I will, move the resolution, resolve the Ulysses Town Board adopts the public information plan, which is developed and reviewed by the town of Ulysses comprehensive plan steering.
Second.
did you want to-
Any further questions or discussion?
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
No problem. And why don't we, let me go back to the budget.
Do you need to, did you do the SPCA?
Yes.
Oh, gosh,
That
that
way
happened
did
when
you
I
have
was
to-
getting coffee.
They heard it was the flood price and excited.
Okay. So did you want to talk about the youth programs
I just, well, I don't want to speak. I don't know.
in the budget where they show and?
Yeah, really not sure.
Okay, so if you look at the general fund, it's going to be on the second page of the expenses, so A 7020 is recreation programs. And A 7310 is your youth programs. So Rachel and Zach, and what they're doing is under A 7310 youth programs. So the youth employment program, what we actually pay youth employees is the 7310.1. And you can see in the notes that it's 12 positions at 70 hours each is what's in the budget right now.
is that what she said she didn't have enough of for all
Right,
30 or?
for the
29?
29 applicants,
29.
correct. We did have 15 youth in that program this year. The budget was a little higher. But that was partly due to some transition
Is that what we pay them and it's
Yes.
free to the,
to the employer,
Yeah.
yes.
I wonder if she was so excited.
So, and then you have this compensation for Rachel and Zach here in the next two lines. They're both 15 hours a week. And then we have contractual spending for the youth programs, which includes support for the things like the civics program and the college tours and the programming that Zach is doing and such. These programs are funded 50% up to the amount that the county funds us. They'll pay for half of the expenses up to a cap.
Would you go pull the sub budget on the youth services,
Yeah.
the youth services CE, because that actually is not all the money that we're putting into the
Oh,
program.
correct.
It also reflects the rec partnership.
Yep, and the summer
Library.
reading program at the
Yeah,
library.
So that's not all the money they have use of, but it falls under that category.
Correct.
And does any of this join with the village?
Yes.
Yes.
All of it?
Yeah, so,
Yes.
so the way it works with youth services and recreation is that we bring a budget to them, to the youth commission. And the county tells us how much they're willing, how much their money's gonna, how much they're gonna fund. And right now we're estimating a flat amount
About $30,000.
Yeah.
Total from the county.
from the county. United Way decreased their funding.
So they're at 3, but they decreased it by 500 or 750 or some, 750.
About 1,500 because it
Total,
was total.
combined, yes.
combined. And so we see what revenue sources we have. And then the town and the village split the balance.
Yeah, so the recreation partnership is $12,000.
Yes, so when you see that in the youth
That's our
services,
cost,
That's what we pay.
that's what we pay.
right?
So when you see in that the youth prize, that's why I just want to be really clear that the 73010
.4.
0.4, the tentative budget is, 26, 556. And that includes $4,000 for the summer reading program, and it also includes, how much is it for the,
12,000
for,
for
yeah.
the recreation partnership.
So what they're actually able to spend on our youth locally is
Yeah, yeah, so 16 of that, or, yeah, is not going to our program specifically. So of these, and the other thing that,
So if you add it all up. It's just a little bit, so many separate pieces here. You add it all up. Revenue versus expense, what's our net bottom line contribution?
I have that, but do I have it so handy?
Well, I mean, while you're looking for that, what I can say is youth services, youth development, the only revenue we can generate from that is from the county. And the county requires a match.
Mhm.
And so, if we don't do the service, we don't get their money kind of thing. So it's different from like revenue from a different source. In recreation, we do create revenue. We have revenue. And when the youth commission looked at the numbers, just think if you had it.
Just look, I have the youth commission budget in here, it's just a matter of
Pull it
me
up too.
finding it. Because I had so many things. So, for this program, based on the compensation, we also apply a benefit rate to the salaries too, which is about 22%. Because it's social security, retirement,
Right.
workers' comp, that kind of thing. If you look at the total cost of the program, 30,000 is funded by the county.
Mhm.
3,000 by United Way, and this is just the youth development piece, and 54 is the youth commission, which is split between the village and the town.
1,000.
54,000. Is split between the village and the town
We're paying 27,000
for this program. Yes,
for the two people who are here tonight.
plus the youth employee.
Plus the rec
partnership.
partnership.
Plus,
the
the-
library.
so that includes the rec partnership.
It does.
Yeah,
Yes,
That
which is
includes both
$12,000.
women and salary?
No,
this is
that's
just youth
not
development.
recreation, that's
This is
just
all youth
youth
This is
development.
all youth development, just for clarity purposes. The cost for us to provide. So for many, many years, right, the town had been with Cornell Cooperative. The cost for them to provide what constitutes a single position that would encompass Rachel and Zach. And activities. Is for 2025 is gonna be $63,000. We're doing it considerably less than that.
No, maybe.
So the only alternative in our community to continue to provide youth services
So if you,
is internal.
let me ask you another way. Per user. Per student user, how many users do we have? And divide that by the dollars, which will give us a per unit cost.
I don't know if you can do that.
For each person. Each
I'm
kid.
not sure, how do you look at the value to the local employers that, who are getting our use in their businesses?
That's another question.
I know, so I think using a method like that, I don't know that that really applies.
Well, if it's a person who spends 10 hours with us versus 40 hours with us, is that one person or 4 people? I mean, and which program they're doing. So,
And the youth programs change, like right now Zach has 10 in both 10 in his outdoor program and 17 in the track, but the winter programs might be less.
Yeah, I
Spring
just wanna
programs
get a
might be
sense, so
more.
when you're talking to people, somebody could ask you, well, how much is this costing per person? I mean, there's a general answer to that, it's not perfect. But
It's not
in a-
perfect, but
It's in a
I mean,
range.
this is the youth of our town too. We're
Oh,
trying
right.
to,
I'm not arguing-
so I don't know if you can put a
I'm-
price on what
Well, of
it,
course you can. You have to
put-
put a price on.
yeah, but
Because we're spending taxpayer dollars.
yes,
So let's say if it was two people and it cost 30,000.
right, it's gonna be 15,000 person. but that's
You
not-
wouldn't pay that, right? That wouldn't be a go. If there were two people in the program and you're gonna spend $15,000 each, right? There's a place where there's value, added value. Then there's a place where you're spending too much per person because you don't have enough people.
So look at it differently, just
Yeah.
$27,000. How many taxpayers do we have? How much is each taxpayer paying
Well,
for
that's
this
a good
program?
way to look at it too.
25 cents? To 50 cents for this program?
No.
I don't know, I'm not quick on my mouth.
Well,
So I think the value added is making sure our youth grow up, have opportunities to be exposed to a variety of different activities, programs. That they don't have to pay for, that they get exposed to the colleges that they might not be exposed to because they don't have that accessible rides or families that can take them on these trips.
I'm not arguing with the benefit.
No,
I
but-
want to be informed so when the taxpayer says, how much does this add to the budget? We have a number, because we're gonna.
What's $27,000?
Right.
so, I mean, I don't think you can really break it down to, there were 3 people benefited, so therefore it's not worth doing if you spend $30,000, because that's not exactly what this is. So you can see that they're both running programs where there's more demand than we are paying them to provide. So it's not a shortage of it, there's in fact, we are not meeting a demonstrated need potentially in our community, a shortfall. So the idea behind youth development is that it is far cheaper to invest in a youth in 5th grade or 6th grade and help them have safe, supportive adults in their community rather than paying the cost of them being incarcerated in the future. I'm not being flip when I say that. That is exactly, no, they look at an investment model. This is why the county invests in this. So if we think about the pyramid, and the cheapest is down here, the cheapest services provided, and the most expensive service being up here. Incarceration is the most expensive thing we can do for a
You're
person.
going to a place where I'm.
No, 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 no.
I'm not talking about.
No, so what you're doing is you're aiming for investing at somewhere in the middle. And that's why we focus on embracing a population who may slip through the cracks. And in some cases, that may be the 17 kids who are doing programming this fall in one place, the 6 people who are going on a college field trip, the 10 that are coming through.
I'm not arguing with any of that. They're all good things.
Right,
I
but
just want to quantify in this budget how much we're paying. If there are 27 kids, it's $1,000 a kid.
But
Well, we're not
there-
looking at the whole benefit to the tax. You're not
That's
worried
not what
about
I'm arguing about, right? Discussing.
so
I just think
Blixie,
it's really, whenever this comes up people get defensive. I don't want people to get defensive. I'm not arguing with the benefit of the program. I just want to know how much it costs. That's all.
well, to put another spin on that, I'm not trying to be defensive when I say that, I just find it narrow to consider that the only benefit is the financial benefit,
No,
so,
I'm
okay.
not saying the benefits are much more than a financial benefit.
okay.
There's no financial benefit to us. There's investment.
Which,
We're
Mhm.
putting in investments.
which I'm sure a financial manager would suggest is a benefit long term, right?
It
Like,
very well may be.
Blixie, would you mind saying, do you have the breakdown of what the village and the town are would be committing to subsidizing both for rec and youth services collectively?
Yes,
I think that's probably the easiest number.
right. So the total municipal support we're looking at is just under $80,000.
And that includes the rec programs, which are in excess of 1,000 registrations in a single year, plus everything with youth development. We will spend, if you want to boil down to the numbers, youth development is going to be the highest cost per person. by far.
Right.
Recreation is a far less one. But the town has previously made a commitment that this is a priority and the village has backed it up financially also. So
Yeah, so our total investment for both recreation and youth development is around 40,000 in this budget. And again,
It's
the
really good
numbers,
To know,
yeah.
the numbers of
absolutely.
participants in
Yeah.
the recreation program are very high.
very high,
Yes.
yeah.
So, and again, I'm not defensive about being very clear with the public and with you about how much money we're spending. It's not that. It's just that the county is very, very focused on, when I say county, the county youth services is very, very focused on that we're not quantifying these children individually. So I want to be respectful of them and their funding of our program, because if we go down the pipeline of saying we're putting a price tag on the children we're serving, I'm going to have very angry youth services representatives on my phone or my email tomorrow or whenever they found out about it. So that's kind of where I am pushing back on for that reason in part. So, but that's how much money it is.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And I do think understanding that it's also helping local employers too, part of it is.
Yeah.
That's harder to quantify
Right.
also.
That's true. As an economic, it's economic.
It's an
development.
economic benefit to them because we're paying for those people, yeah.
So as you had stated in here, the appropriated fund balance. They're not tied to one-time expenditures, so in this one, I think the will be fund also.
Correct,
We
so
have
you're
a-
talking, looking at A right now. Is
Yeah.
that what you're looking at? Yeah,
We have a medium-term plan on how to balance that in future years.
yeah, I think that's
Because
something we have to
Once
work on,
something started, it's really hard to stop the flywheel.
right, right. And it's something that we're gonna have to focus on,
Mhm.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we start that with this budget, make sure we don't.
It's a good question.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's part, I mean, we could have brought you a budget that was under the tax cap. We could have reduced reserves. We could have cut into Water District 3. I mean, these are some very realistic things. We could cut into how much money we're putting into Water District 3. We could use more fund balance in A.
Yeah,
We could have easily brought you a budget that did
Yeah.
that, but the reality is that seemed inappropriate, having not had a conversation about how we were gonna gradually use money, and it also, you know, it would, it's in, what we're seeing in A fund in particular is rising ongoing costs, not one-time costs that are driving expenditures. And so we're going to need to gradually draw down on fund balance. We could have made everybody feel good this year, but, and maybe we decide collectively to use a little bit more fund balance and we decide to put a little bit less in reserves and we hit the threshold. But
Hitting the threshold doesn't really buy it. What does it get us?
doesn't really buy us.
Nothing.
No, I mean, I think it's disingenuous, quite honestly, to the public. I would rather have a gradual increase in our taxation. This won't be the highest tax rate or the highest percentage tax increase in terms of the percentage increases in 10 years. There were ones that were higher than this. So I think the tax cap is an artificial cap. And that my priority in talking to Blixie had been to preserve our fund balance so that we have the ability to use it strategically over a longer period of time rather than overly relying on it this year.
Yeah, I have no problem.
Because I think and Blixie mentioned it, the research and the analysis that really needs to be done is how we've used that. How we've done expenditures in the past and how conservative we've been, because it might be that we're just too overly conservative in how we're budgeting.
Well, we
our
have been
expenses.
very conservative.
And maybe we'd be less conservative in the future as part of a fund balance strategy and see how that works. But short of Blixie having time to do that analysis, we just didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah, right.
So what else in A funds? Would you like to really point out?
just thinking, well, I guess a couple of things I'll point out is that there are no capital projects or anything big in this budget. That doesn't mean that there won't be any. But they're all going to be funded by either revenue, like ARPA money, or reserves, if there needs to be some amount made up between, let's say, the parking lot expense, right?
Right.
And you have to kick in some, it's gonna have to come out of our capital reserve for the building, for this piece here. There's no other money to pay for
Right.
that. So I'm just pointing that out, that this doesn't have those activities in them, this budget, because we don't have enough data to know what that's gonna look like yet. But once we know, we can amend the budget to reflect those things. I do think there is funding in here for moving forward with, moving our recreation programs to Camp Barton, right?
Yes.
And so part of that is our continued investment with the village in the joint program, and
But the idea being that that money will be recouped.
yes.
It
And
might not
then-
be with any of us sitting around the table.
And also, helping to hire someone to help us transition to that new program, which again would serve a lot more people.
Yeah.
So,
And I will be real honest, I'm hoping it's a revenue generator for people who are not in the
Right.
Trumansburg, Ulysses School District,
So-
the town of Ulysses.
so some of those things are one-time things in
Say
my
that
mind,
again?
because they're investments in
Mm.
trying to move forward with
Yeah.
a plan that's a
Yeah.
revenue generator. So those things are in here. I mean, they're not $150,000 worth, but that's about $40,000, I'd say.
What I said about that is I think long-term, we could grow a summer camp program that actually is a revenue generator
Right.
for people who are not our
I
residents.
see.
And I think that would be tremendous, it would be a tremendous benefit if we could serve everybody that, that serve our community. And then if we had additional space, we charge a higher price point, maybe it's $25 higher price point, but it's a higher price point to come from farther out of the area. I think it will be an attraction. But that's gonna take a few years to do. So,
The other thing I would mention is that we continue to make investments in IT. And we're still trying to hit on a solution that works well for the changes that we've had to implement based on the comptroller's report. So we're now using a local service for support in addition to the advanced 2000. So that's an ongoing, let's find out what works best, but that's in the budget. In the long run, we might be able to do better or not financially. I think it's kind of a wait and see.
Well, I called the guy because I couldn't get the authenticator going
Right.
on my phone.
Yeah,
We tried to walk me through it on the phone. It didn't really work. Then I have to go down to his office and they can do it there.
it'll be really fast
On
once
the
it gets a home.
computer.
Yeah,
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 but at least we have a local person.
Right,
Who's
right.
here
And not in
to
Buffalo,
help
yeah,
us do that.
yeah.
So. And I actually find him very easy to work with.
he's been real, I gotta say, they've been really responsive to me. I had a computer had to be set up and stuff for a new employee and it was a very smooth,
Yeah,
efficient process.
I also think that one of the things it's not a big money item, but it's a shift in how we're looking at, utilizing staff. So we're utilizing DPW staff more to help with managing some of the building and external things, so that the clerk's office, in particular Krista with her many hats, isn't always the person that has to climb in the attic and change a filter or something like that.
Yeah.
So we're
That was
looking at
Michelle.
utilizing the DPW staff more effectively, and that's accounted for in this budget. But I think just working on developing some internal expertise when we can utilize it, but then using external expertise when we really need to, so that the staff don't get too overwhelmed. I mean, that's just an observation I have about this budget.
And it's only what, $1,000?
Well, that
Yeah,
particular
that
item is
particular
only
item is
$1,000,
$1,000.
and it's an estimate of how much of their time. I mean, they could handle something so much more quickly, with their background and expertise,
you
so.
know, part of why I brought this line of questioning up was given the well testing that was going on, our well was tested and it had E. coli and coliform in it, so we had to put in a whole UV system to kill it. So I'm thinking a lot of people can't afford that. They're gonna get their well tested and they're gonna have all this stuff in there.
Mm.
I think we need a fund to help pay for that, for residents who can't afford it.
That's more challenging when it comes to public funding in terms of programs that are only gonna benefit anyway. It's interesting,
Well, it's a health benefit if they don't get.
right? No, understood.
DOH have any?
The health department, I think, they have in the past have had some various helper funds for different things.
I know Seneca County does. I don't know about Tompkins.
Well, that in the state, but maybe we can. Kind of as a next step, just try to get some information for where people can get more information. To
Mhm.
figure out what needs to be done, because you're right, that. With testing, you're gonna find things and you're not
It's
gonna always
most
like what you
likely coming from
find.
the farms up the street. And we have no control over this, waste material.
No, and based on I don't know if anybody was watching the news, there was an article in the Ithaca Voice that, New York State has put the kibosh on, what, was it Owego? With which?
Owasco.
Owasco had regulations that they were trying to get approved, and it took several years, and DOH
Mhm.
said, you can't do that. So all the things that, the watershed was trying to do in Owasco.
To
And
protect
everybody's
it.
been watching Owasco,
Right.
because if they could get it through, that meant we could get it through,
And they couldn't
and they
get it
can't get
through.
it through. So
Mhm.
I read the article and thought, so if you can't undertake land use reforms to help force, nutrients and stuff being kept on site, then the town isn't going to.
Right.
So what options we have is probably gonna be very limited in a lot of cases. Doing not related to non-point source contaminants. So that was in the news today.
Mhm.
So, it's certainly wanting those programs, and we can certainly look into it. I mean, I think that, my initial thought would be that probably Department of Health, the county is probably better suited to manage a program like that, but I don't know if anything like that exists.
And I do think Owasco filed a section 78.
They have part of.
So- It's not over yet, but. It's taken them 3 years to get to this point, so who knows how long the section 78 takes.
Right.
So,
And I think you wanted to hold off on.
well, I think given the hour,
Yeah,
I think that's probably better to wait till
Yeah.
Mary's here with the B fund, and if there's more questions with the A fund, but I think that gets us in a good place. To the October meeting, with the budget, we will have public hearings with the town board we will have 2 public hearings.
at your next meeting.
At our next meeting.
So you think there's adequate time to wrap this up at the next board meeting?
I do think because we've gotten to, if we have more time, people want to spend in A and then get into B, but B is gonna be the real nuts and bolts conversation, because there are more one-time projects being requested than we have funds available, so we have to prioritize and have conversations.
And I didn't know if you wanted to review the community funding.
In the next, I'd like to do that when Mary's here, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
Because that's in the A fund as well.
Yes.
And we could discuss those.
Is that in here?
Oh, yeah.
It's
But it's
embedded,
broken out.
it's embedded in there. and
Yeah.
What I would do
Oh,
is give you
yeah.
the breakout.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I saw the individual lines.
Yeah, but
different-
some of
all
them have.
broken out.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Because of how where they get.
Yeah, no,
Line
that's,
shows up.
that's, fine. I didn't know there was a summary of them.
And then if anybody has specific questions about these documents, I'm happy to answer them, whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then, upcoming events, we have our next regular meeting, and again, it'll be a long one. My goal is to move everything off that agenda. We can move off to focus on budget. So, I'm gonna send out a request, and I'd be deeply grateful if you could write a paragraph up about whatever your liaisons are, and we can just include it in the board packet. And not spend a lot of time on updates.
Yeah.
Because the first meeting of the month always, it's wonderful, but it also takes up a chunk of time. And so that we can really hunker down on the budget. And then on October 9th, the next day, is going to be, it's scheduled as a public meeting. If the board is in it, if there's a quorum in attendance, we'll run it as a town board meeting. But only if there's a board in attendance. It's gonna be on the preliminary design of the Curry Road Bridge, and that'll be from 5:30 to 6:30 here at Town Hall. And then, on the 22nd is our next regular town board meeting after that. And that brings us to, approval of minutes. We had several sets of minutes. And, there was, Michael, you found, a typo in the date on one of them.
Yeah, Chris got that.
Okay,
Yeah, September 12th still has September 11th date on it.
okay.
Fix that.
Excellent. So, when I read through them, I didn't see anything and I did not catch that typo, so thank you for catching that. Did anybody else have any changes they wanted to make with that one correction?
No.
There were a lot of them. There were. Thank you very much. That's a lot of work.
But here in the resolution, it's 9/10/24, not 9/10/25.
Yes, it is. Carissa corrected, and what in my newsletter article,
November.
I welcomed everybody to the November meeting. No, we're not there yet. Okay, so we'll fix that too. So. Resolved, so I'll move it, resolves the Ulysses Town Board approves the meeting minutes as amended.
A second.
Any further discussion?
If you want this- Is there other dates listed? in
They're
there?
listed, yeah, they're
Okay,
listed.
yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's the second, so all those in favor? Aye. And then, last but not least, there are no. The only notification I will give is that I will be giving you a. Possible notification next month, but no notification or at our next meeting, so there's no notifications, sorry. Privilege of the floor, that brings us full circle back. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the board? We don't have anybody present, so. Yeah, Roxanne, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to, sorry, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Okay, I just wanted to comment on what Rich brought up about the water testing results and I mean, the Water Source Protection Plan Committee is, a big part of the plan that's being drafted